Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Mid-Speeds live class. We'll go ahead and mute everybody. That way, if we have anybody that comes in the middle of class, we won't get interrupted. All right, here we go. Ready? Let's start off with words. Late, advised, additional, assure, often, especially, experience, suggest, white, wonderful, nearly, ship, dance, claim, dated, rate, family, forwarded, alive, spring, copies, doctor, particular, interesting, idea, sample, land, start, hoping, owe, proper, father, head, word, church, requested, grade, feeling, hardly, items, ought, convenience, reached, sell, public, poor, store, times, street, original, continue, past, planning, save, judgment, understanding. All right, let's go over we're going to cover some of the most popular websites. Here we go. www.uol.com.br, www.tmz.com, www.usmagazine.com, www.wonderwall.com, www.doubleclick.net, www.gawker.com, www.googleadservices.com, www.accuweather.com, www.answers.yahoo.com, and www.googleweblight.com. All right. Moving on to another drill. This is going to be a similar word drill covering why, she, they, who, etc. Here we go. Who is responsible for the delay? Where did that come from? Why won't she bring the documents? Will she deliver the package? Will he go to the library after work? There is a light at the intersection. What will they do when she finds out? Where does she go when she leaves the office? What did she say to the gentleman? When did he go to the classroom? Why does he come and go like that? Come here and bring what is on her tray. What did she say the doctor said to her? She hadn't said anything about the conversation. They will arrive when she has left. Why does he do that every time she comes in? He is getting annoyed by her constant nitpicking. Will they bring their car with them? They will come if she doesn't go. What did they say they would do if she came late? She came with them at noon. He knew she would pull a stunt like that. When they come by, give them this. It won't be too long before she gets there. Why should I do it for her? What would it take for you to do me this favor? Where will the road take us? All right. Now I'm going to give you some phrases and briefs, and if you don't know them, it's okay, just write it out. Okay, you're probably going to know some are you don't hear very often, so if you don't know it, just go ahead and write it out. Here we go. Ready? Deposition, determine, direct evidence, duty, element, emphasis, emphasize, employee, enter, equal, exclusive judge, exhibit, existence or non-existence, experience, expert witness, explain, eyewitness, facts and circumstances, fair and impartial, fair preponderance of the evidence, fair consideration, fairly and impartially, field of knowledge, follow, follow the law, for or against, for your consideration, from time to time, gentleman, gentlemen, given, greater weight of the evidence, guilt or innocence, guilty, guilty or innocent, if you find, in order, in other words, in that case, in the case, in this case, indictment, inference, influence, information, injure, injury, instruction. All right. Now, here are some initial consonants that all start with SW and they're in sentence form. Here we go. Let me just date this. All right. Here we go. Ready? The Swedes swap sweethearts. Swashbucklers sway when you swat them. I swear she swept me off my feet. Swear words are like swill, good only for swine. He sweated wearing a sweatband in a sweatbox. A Sweeney is found in a horse. The sweep second hand swept on. Sweet corn, sweet peppers, and sweet potatoes are good. No need to swelter, go swimming. We made a swift swerve in Switzerland. A swinger is hard to swindle. He began life swiping the sweets. Swing around the Swiss swine. We switched from swirls to swales. Swivel in the chair if you are in a swivet. Do you have an extra swizzle stick that would swoosh? His swollen hand made her swoon. Everyone swore the swimming swinger swum. Swoop by with a swoosh. Swartz sweeps, swooning swindlers. Right. Now, I've got some automobile terms. Here we go. Ready? Weather stripping, high beam lights, defroster operation, directional signals, horn operation, defroster controls, brake linings, windshield washers, heater operation, engine performance, starter operation, parking brake, door hardware, door alignment, heater controls, and weather stripping. All right. Now, I've got some common phrases. You're going to want to phrase as much as possible. Here you go. Ready? So I recall, so I recalled, so you recall, so you recalled, that he recalled, that he recalls, that I recall, that I recalled, that you recall, that you recalled, they recall, they recalled, to have recalled, to recall, we recalled, what he recalled, what he recalls, what I recall, what I recalled, what you recall, what you recalled, when he recalled, when he recalls, when you recall. Does he recall? Do I recall? Have recalled, have recalled. He recalled, he recalls. I can't recall, I didn't recall, I don't recall. I recall, I recalled. If he recalls, if I recall, it recalled. It recalls, may recall, must have recalled, must recall, shall recall, she recalled, she recalls, should have recalled, should recall, so he recalled, so he recalls. All right. Now I've got some Tangle Tamers. Here we go. Ready? Prescription lenses purchased legitimately. Beautiful apartments. Church representatives. Dehydration and exhaustion. Prevailing opinion. Uncounted thousands. Hand-lettered signs. Earthquake ravaged region. Political assassination. Deafening tactics. Aircraft hijacker. Recovering drug addict, contaminated soil, supervising engineer, carbohydrate contents, charters typically, and formally headquartered. All right, moving on to some dates. Some are ordinals, some are not. Here we go. February 23rd, 2015, September 18th, 1970, March 13, 1962, July 5, 1983, December 9, 1988, June 2nd, 2010, August 8, 1998, January 15th, 2011, April 25, 2014, May 11th, 2005, October 16th, 2001, November 1, 1950, April 21st, 1990, August 30th, 2002, October 9, 1962, June 5th, 2016, January 25, 1993, May 8, 2012, September 18, 2014, July 26, 2015, March 23rd, 2007, February 8th, 2009, December 6th, 1902, November 11, 2006, October 2nd, 2005, January 31st, 2010, April 14, 1974, July 11, 1982, October 1st, 1997, December 27th, 2015, February 22, 1901, May 30th, 2014. Right. And our last drill will focus on medical words and their definitions. Here we go. Abductor, a muscle which draws a part away from the median line of the body. Abrasion, superficial tearing or scraping of the skin. Abscess, a circumscribed collection of pus in any part of the body. Achilles tendon, a strong tendon formed of the united tendons of the large muscles in the calf of the leg and inserted into the bone of the heel. Aneurysm, a permanent abnormal dilation of a blood vessel, particularly an artery, resulting from disease of the vessel wall. Such dilations are filled with fluid, blood, or clotted blood. Anorexia, absence or loss of appetite. Anterior, situated in front of or in the forward part of. Aorta, the great arterial trunk which carries blood from the heart to be distributed by numerous branches to all parts of the body. Aqueous, watery. Arteriosclerosis, abnormal thickening and hardening of the walls of the arteries, occurring mostly in old age. Artery, one of the tubular branching vessels which carry the blood from the heart to the various parts and organs of the body. Articulation, a joint or juncture between the bones or cartilages in the skeleton. Atrophy, a wasting away from want of nourishment. Axilla, the armpit. Bifurcation, a dividing into two branches. Bronchi, branches of the trachea or windpipe. Calcareous, pertaining to or containing lime or calcium carbonate, chalky. Calcification, the formation of lime salts in the tissues. And callus, a new bony deposit around a fracture, accomplishing the work of repair. All right. I've got a fun poem here. This is called With His Mouth Full of Food. I will start at 120 and work my way to 160. Here we go. Milford Dupree, though he knew it was rude, talked with his mouth full of food. He never would burp or walk out in the nude, but he talked with his mouth full of food. His mother said, Milford, it's crude and it's lewd to talk with your mouth full of food. Why, even the milk cow who mooed as she chewed never mooed with her mouth full of food. And the cuckoo would never have ever cuckooed if he cuckooed with his mouth full of food. His dad said, get married or go get tattooed, but don't talk with your mouth full of food. If it was a crime, you would surely get sued if you talked with your mouth full of food. Why, just like an animal, you should be zooed as you talk with your mouth full of food. For you know, we're all put in a terrible mood when you talk with your mouth full of food. They pleaded and begged. He just giggled and chewed and laughed with his mouth full of food. And they all advised him he simply poo-pooed. He poo-pooed with his mouth full of food. So they sent for the gluer and had his mouth glued, 'cause he talked with his mouth full of food. Now instead of good morning, he says, good morning. I won't talk with my mouth full of food. All right, now I've got some Latin and French words. I'm going to give you the words and then read you the sentences. All right, so you're going to hear animus ferandi, de novo, pendente lite, sotto voce, and viva voce. It also can be pronounced viva voce or viva voce. Just depends on the speaker. Okay, here we go. Animus ferandi means with the intent to steal. The goal of animus ferandi is to permanently deprive an owner of his property. De novo means a new or fresh. De novo usually refers to trial de novo. Another term for pending litigation is pendente lite. Pendente lite means during the pendency of the lawsuit. Alimony, pendente lite, is temporary alimony that is court ordered during the pendency of a divorce in action. Voce means voice. Sotto voce means in a soft voice, so as not to be overheard. The term viva voce examination is synonymous with oral examination. All right. Now, I've got an article here on handicapped Americans and its congressional record. Here we go. Mr. Speaker, it is my privilege to introduce in the House today a resolution designating April 12th as National Handicapped Americans Day. Those of us who have served on the House Committee for Advancement of Handicapped Veterans are quite proud of the long and outstanding record achieved by the Congress of the United States in responding to the needs of the handicapped, and especially to those who have served in the defense of our nation. During the past several years, we have been able to enact legislation to care for their physical and medical needs. We have also helped to foster a general awareness and a better understanding and appreciation of the veterans who have suffered and sacrificed in the line of duty for their country. Congress has recently authorized and improved extensive programs to provide readjustment, compensation, and rehabilitation services to assist the handicapped person in overcoming the obstacles that are confronted. Although we have made great strides in helping the handicapped, there is a lot that still can be done. In particular, the disabled person needs to become part of the mainstream of society. We need to encourage the handicapped to live more productive, full, and rewarding lives. On April 12th, the National Organization for Handicapped Americans will hold its national convention in Missouri. Thousands of handicapped Americans will be attending this convention. The National Organization for Handicapped Americans will be sponsoring workshops on self-awareness, job potentials, and mainstreaming. The organization's representatives have invited as their keynote speaker Richard Wyburn, Governor of Mississippi, who is also a handicapped American. At the request of the National Organization for Handicapped Americans, I am proud to introduce this legislation designating April 12th as National Handicapped Americans Day. Right. I'm going to do a continuation of some legal opinion and arguments. I'm going to start where we left off. Here we go. And again, I will start at 120, work my way to 160. Here we go. Conversely, it seems to me if Coast had a legal right to do both these two things, what its motive might have been in exercising that legal right is legally irrelevant. I think that is the lesson of many, many cases in California. The point being, if the contracting party has a legal right to do or not to do something, the motive which induced its exercise of that right is legally irrelevant. One case, as an aside to the court, Monahan versus Department of Water and Power, 48 CA 2nd 754, there was an allegation that a particular employee, because of whim, caprice, and malice, the court said it is nothing but an allegation of motive. The standards of the law are external. Motives are not actionable. In other words, it isn't whether or not Coast was acting within its legal rights in effecting this sublease. It is not going to be determined by what went on in its mind, but how it internalized the whole thing. It's going to be determined by the external conduct of the parties. That is, what either of the parties did or did not do in relation to their legal rights under the master lease. The court goes on to say here, where there is a legal right to do a certain act, the motive which induces the exercise of the right is of no importance. Thirdly, Your Honor, again, there is Huntington Center seeking to assert anti-competitive motives on the part of Coast. As I point out in our points and authorities, Huntington Center is not a savings and loan association. In other words, they really have no standing to complain of this. Gibson Savings and Loan Association is in this case. It has filed a cross complaint against Coast. The whole point of their so-called anti-competitive motive that Mr. Adler said a few minutes ago was allegedly Coast seeking to either exclude or prevent savings and loan competition at Huntington Center. I might point out that Huntington Center is a huge shopping center. Huntington Center is just one of many, many locations and spaces within that center. But the point is, it is not a savings and loan. And for them to raise this in some way or some sort of unclean hands or bad faith or whatever, they have to show that particular alleged conduct. And I submit this is not even conduct. This is internalizing. The thing they want to inquire into has got to be directed against the party who is raising this. They certainly are not in the savings and loan business. This would not be actionable at their behest. Lastly, Your Honor, the fact that Gibson does have a cross complaint against Coast, I don't think that they can bootstrap from that case and expand the perimeters of their discovery based upon a cross complaint, a cross action within the confines of their total action to which they are not a party. Whatever right Gibson may have is fine. Whatever discovery that they want to take within the perimeters of this pleading, they can take. Some party who is not a party to that particular cross action cannot say, well, we want to get into this thing too. Now, with respect to the questions, Your Honor, these 60 questions, I think they really break down into a very limited number of categories. First, we have questions 1 through 7, and they are listed on page 24A and 26D of the points and authorities filed by the Huntington Center in support of this motion. Again, it's pages 24A to 26D. This is of the points and authorities. All right, now shortly before the colloquy that appears on those pages of the Huntington Center's points and authorities, Mr. Penwell testified, and this is on page 32 of these depositions. I see these depositions have been lodged with the court, that they have negotiated branch offices for Coast in various other places, such as Walnut Creek, California, which is some 500 miles away, Diamond Bar out in the Pomona area, West Covina, San Gabriel Valley, and Long Beach. All right, I let counsel inquire into the fact that Mr. Penwell had conducted these negotiations for branch sites because I thought it had limited relevancy to the man's capabilities and his background and so forth and so on. Then counsel wanted to get into the negotiation of the terms and provisions of each of these leases, whether Coast engaged a broker and what they told the broker and what they instructed the broker. I submit, Your Honor, this is just too far afield. I mean, we could go on forever in these depositions on that basis. So I think questions 1 to 7 respecting the negotiation by Mr. Penwell of these other branch sites having nothing to do with Huntington Center or Huntington Beach or negotiations of other branch sites within 30 miles of Huntington Center. It is just, so much absurdity in context of this particular unit and suite. All right, now let's go on and let's go into the questions 8 through 55. It seems to me, Your Honor, these can be treated as one group. These appear at pages 27A to 27W of the points and authorities filed by Huntington Center, and then also question 60, which is on page 30A, I think belongs in this group. Now, these all deal, Your Honor, with the question of why Coast is relocating its branch from Huntington Center to the Ettinger Plaza location, chose to move to Ettinger Plaza rather than to some other alternative location. Now, among other things, there are a series of questions asked to which officers participated in the decision to use Ettinger Plaza, why that site was chosen among various alternatives, Mr. Penwell's conversations with officers as to why that site was chosen. It has nothing to do, as I pointed out earlier, with any anti-competitive motivation, assuming that that can conceivably be an issue. But again, the fact is they moved out of Huntington Center, and what rights they may give Huntington Center depends upon the interpretation of the lease and upon the application of the lease, and why, when it chose to move out, it chose location A rather than B, C, or D. It seems to me, again, if these questions are permitted to be asked of Mr. Penwell, we're going to have 5 more rounds of these questions going on by the end of May. I think it is a useless kind of discovery. Question 56 on page 28A. Now that question was answered, and I don't know why the motive was made. Mr. Penwell was asked when he became aware of Coast's decision to relocate, and there is a specific answer to that question. Question 57 was not answered, but it seems to me that it was an incomplete question because there was colloquy developed in the middle of that question, and the question was never completed. Now, the last 2 questions, I don't have the number of them right now, but on pages 29A and 29B, Mr. Penwell is asked of what other savings and loans or competitors of Coast he is aware of within a 3-mile radius of Huntington Center. Again, Your Honor, that goes to the so-called anti-competitive desire, belief, attitude, motive, which I don't think is an issue in this case. All right, there's more, but I'm going to stop there. Let's move on to Q&A. I'm going to do some continuation on the Doughboy pool accident. Okay, and it looks like plaintiff is questioning. There we go. Have you worked for Doughboy? And I am sure getting to know the different people that have been there and some of the history of Doughboy. Have you become aware of the fact that back in the early 90s, at least, Doughboy, along with all the other above ground pool industry people, were advertising the same above ground pools as diving pools? It is my understanding that that was an entirely different product. How was it different? I don't know. I am not a technical. Who told you that it was different? And how do you know that it was different? People that were in the industry at the time. Did they tell you how it was different? No. Didn't you wonder how it was different? Not particularly. At your deposition before, have you seen any of the ads back in the early 90s showing people diving into above ground pools. Cartoon character type adds yes. You don't remember seeing, for example, the Silver Line or Ocean Line series where they show a diving board into an above ground pool. You don't remember seeing that at all? Yeah, I think I recall seeing something. I am not sure from when it was. I was probably before I even got out of college. From the ones you remember seeing at your depositions, would you tell me what you remember seeing about those that makes them different than the pools you sell today? As far as the pools are concerned, exactly. I am not familiar with those products. You saw the pictures. I am asking, looking at the pictures, what did you see in the pictures that looked different, if anything? Not a lot. And do you remember seeing some of the advertising back in the early 90s, advertising pools as having a deep diving area? No. You don't remember that? Uh-uh. Is that a no? Sorry, no. Do you know what the origin of the deeper part of the pool is? The variable depth part, or the hopper part, or whatever you want to call it? Do you know why Doughboys started making a deeper area to their pools? No. When you were doing your diving in the waves or the body surfing, did you ever have an occasion where you struck the bottom yourself? You told me about seeing other people do it. I wonder if you ever did. Not to the point where I got physical injury, scratched up, or anything. I take it you may have touched bottom. I have gotten my trunks full of sand before, but no visual injuries. No injuries. Okay, do you have any idea how much force it takes to break the spine in the neck area and cause spinal cord injury? No. You have no idea how hard you have to hit the bottom of an above ground pool, for example, to break your neck? I know. Whether it is an above ground pool or whether it is anything else, it is not a lot of force. How do you know that? Because I have killed rabbits by breaking their necks. I have seen that done myself. Let me ask you, is there anything that I could tell you or show you today that would convince you that what you are doing in body surfing and diving into the waves is not safe because you could get hurt? Well, I am going to object to this. Don't answer that question. Well, along the same lines, do you have any opinion or thoughts today as to what could be said to people that we have talked about that dive into above ground pools on the same basis, believing that they know how to dive in, that they will not get hurt? Do you have any ideas as to what you could do or say to those people to convince them that they were wrong? Again, you are asking this witness to testify as an expert on what to say to people that are using pools. This man is a treasurer of a corporation. He has nothing to do with any of the questions that you have posed to him. He couldn't answer these questions any more than anyone else that you pulled right off the street. The purpose of this deposition is to discover facts relating to this particular case. You are asking this witness to act as an expert witness on one hand, and on the other, you are prying into his personal life, and none of it has anything to do with the issue in this case. If you don't get on to the facts related to the case, I am going to terminate the deposition. That is your privilege. Are you telling him not to answer that question? Yes, I am. Well, do you claim to be an expert in anything that has to do with this case? No. Now, the only reason I am asking all these things, like I said, I haven't read your depo from Jonathan. I am just looking at this outline that was supplied to me from defense counsel. I get the impression in this outline that you have expressed opinions previously to the fact that everybody should know better than to dive into above ground pools. I guess if you are not an expert in anything having to do with this case, that would be something that you wouldn't be able to render an opinion on. I can render an opinion, but it is not a factual, I am not expressing a factual, well, in my mind, I guess it is a fine line where you draw the line as to where you are expert and where you are not expert. In my opinion, you are not an expert in anything that has to do with this case. You are not an expert in knowing whether it is common sense or common knowledge that people know better not to dive into above ground pools. I am just going to assume that that is the way it is and get off this line of questioning and shorten this depo up a lot. Just to make sure I am clear, you don't claim to have any special knowledge or ability in the form of expertise as far as it relates to warning signs, how to prevent people from diving into above ground pools? No. Do you have anything at all to do in your position or your prior positions with keeping track of the lawsuits that are brought against Doughboy from the people that get hurt on the pools? That's done under, I suppose, my area of responsibility. Would you explain that a little further? Relating to the purchase of insurance, liability insurance, typically the insurance carriers will want to know a history of lawsuits, so we provide that for them. So I take it you have a list somewhere in your department of all the prior litigation against Doughboy you know, as to the number of cases and some background information of what they are about, something like that? Yes. A lot of companies, they keep what they call litigation files. Does that mean anything to you? Yes. Do you keep the litigation files in your department somewhere? We keep it in a department there, yes. Is there a particular person in your department that is in charge of the responsibility of taking care of custody and keeping the litigation files up to date? Yes. Who would that be? That would be Mrs. Jackie Leo. Jackie Leo? Correct. How long has she been there? I think she joined the company shortly after I did, I guess. She has been there a while. Approximately 8. I don't remember specifically her hire date. Out of that time, how long has she been in charge of the litigation files that we have talked about in the whole time or less than that? The whole time. The whole time. Does she have a title there? What would her position be? Yes, she does, but I don't recall what it is offhand. Does she have any other responsibilities other than taking care of the litigation files? Or is that a full-time job for her? Today, she no longer has any additional responsibilities. At some point in time, I take it, it was not a full-time position? Correct. But it has grown to that length at today's time? Correct. Does she have any particular kind of legal background or paralegal background or anything like that? Or did she sort of pick this job up as she worked along? She picked it up as she worked along. I take it if you needed information for the insurance companies, she would be the one you would call upon to assist you in deriving whatever information you needed as far as litigation was concerned? Yes. I think we filed some requests to admit in this case, as well as a couple of other Doughboy cases about prior litigation. Do you know what a request to admit is? Yes. Did anybody show you any of those requests to admit as far as prior litigation against Doughboy? Yes. Did you sign the answers? Do you recall? I am not sure. Let's see if I can find it. Well, in looking in my file, we are all human. We all make mistakes. Looking in my files, I can't find any answers in my file to that set of questions. Hold it. This is on the Bean case. Why is the Bean case in here? Sorry about that. Do you remember specifically reviewing in this particular case, the Reach case, the request to admit regarding prior Doughboy litigation? I don't have a specific recollection that relates to this case. If I took a list of cases that I have by name, prior Doughboy litigation cases, and went down the list, you would be able to tell me the background of those cases from memory? Probably not, but I take it somewhere back in your office, Jackie Leo would have a document or a series of documents of some sort that would assist you in answering my questions as to what the background, the foundation of different litigation against Doughboy would be, going back for at least 10 or 15 years? Yes. Do you have any idea today from memory? Do you have any idea how many times in your recollection and memory Doughboy has been sued by people who have broken their necks without spinal cord injury or broken their necks with spinal cord injuries? Do you know how many cases have been filed against Doughboy? No. Do you have an idea whether it is more than 20 or less than 20? I don't have a specific recollection. Does Jackie or anyone else in your department take this information from these litigation files and try to find out why all these people, whatever the number of them is, dove into those Doughboy pools? Do you understand that question? Would you please rephrase that? Well, as anybody at Doughboy, I am assuming someone in your department. If not, if you know anybody else outside your department that has done it, that would be fine. Has anybody done reviews of different files and tried to track down information to find out exactly why it is some or all of these people dove into Doughboy pools and broke their necks, and find out why they did it? No. Has that thought ever occurred to you that there might be something to be learned from finding out why all these people dove into Doughboy pools and broke their necks? Well, what has come out in most of these cases is that the typical profile involves normally a young male macho type showing off for his lady acquaintances in the vicinity. Usually, though not all of the time, there is alcohol or drugs involved or some other display of manhood. It is the typical profile of the people who decide to take a flying leap. A flying leap meaning a dive into a pool. They also do the same thing in the ocean and the lakes and rivers. Well, you do it in the ocean, right? Not under the influence of either drugs or alcohol, but I mean you do the basic maneuver of going into the body surfing and diving like we talked about? Sure. Well, for example, has anybody attempted to find out how many of these people that are injured by diving into the Doughboy pools felt that they could dive safely, just like you do? We have made no inquiry into their abilities or training as it relates to diving. All right, let's do some read back. All right. This is going to be plaintiff questioning. The first time I read it, I will read it at 160, and then I'll read it at 1:40, the last time at 1:20. All right. This is plaintiff questioning. Here we go. What time did he first get there? He got there at approximately 2 a.m. And that is the time he gave her a shot and said she had had a slight stroke. Yes. And at what time did he come back, if you recall? Approximately 10 o'clock the next day. And then he came back the last time at approximately 7:30. That's when he recommended to put her in the ICU part of the hospital. That was the next evening? Yes, it was. And what was your wife's condition from the time the doctor first came up until he decided to put her in the ICU? She was slightly lifeless. Do you mean there was no movement at all? No, nothing. No sound? No sound, nothing moved. And what was her appearance other than being motionless? Her appearance was good. Was she in this condition on the second and third visits of the doctor? Yes, she was. What did the doctor do or say at the time of the second visit? Well, his actual words, I don't know. The effect was that he didn't see why she didn't snap out of it, and that she probably would any minute, but he'd wait a little while and come back later. Did you have to phone him each time, or did he come back on his own? He came back on his own. All right. Let's do that again at 1:40. Here we go. Ready? What time did he first get there? He got there at approximately 2 a.m. And that is the time he gave her a shot and said she had had a slight stroke? Yes. And at what time did he come back, if you recall? Approximately 10 o'clock the next day. And then he came back the last time at approximately 7:30. That's when he recommended to put her in the ICU part of the hospital. That was the next evening? Yes, it was. And what was your wife's condition from the time the doctor first came up until he decided to put her in the ICU? She was slightly lifeless. Do you mean there was no movement at all? No, nothing. No sound? No sound, nothing moved. And what was her appearance other than being motionless? Her appearance was good. Was she in this condition on the second and third visits of the doctor? Yes, she was. What did the doctor do or say at the time of the second visit? Well, his actual words, I don't know. The effect was that he didn't see why she didn't snap out of it, and that she probably would any minute, but he'd wait a little while and come back later. Did you have to phone him each time, or did he come back on his own? He came back on his own. All right, last time will be at 1:20. Here we go. What time did he first get there? He got there at approximately 2 a.m. And that is the time he gave her a shot and said she had had a slight stroke? Yes. And at what time did he come back, if you recall? Approximately 10 o'clock the next day. And then he came back the last time at approximately 7:30. That's when he recommended to put her in the ICU part of the hospital. That was the next evening? Yes, it was. And what was your wife's condition from the time the doctor first came up until he decided to put her in the ICU? She was slightly lifeless. Do you mean there was no movement at all? No, nothing. No sound? No sound, nothing moved. And what was her appearance other than being motionless? Her appearance was good. Was she in this condition on the second and third visits of the doctor? Yes, she was. What did the doctor do or say at the time of the second visit? Well, his actual words, I don't know. The effect was that he didn't see why she didn't snap out of it, and that she probably would any minute, but he'd wait a little while and come back later. Did you have to phone him each time, or did he come back on his own? He came back on his own. All right, so since we don't have any students here in the live class, what I want you to do is go back and listen to the recording. Every recording is the same, and compare the read back to your notes and see how you do. Okay, so that concludes our live speed mid class. Have a great and wonderful day, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.